I'll start today's webinar by just thanking each and every one of you for taking time out of your very busy schedules to join me here for our Accelerate series webinar for July. For those that are tuning in for the first time, I host an Accelerate series webinar every third or fourth Thursday of the month. I try to keep it to the third Thursday, but sometimes we have 5 Thursdays in a month, and if we have a holiday or something, I'll push it. What you can count on is that every month I will host an Accelerate series webinar on a different topic, feature, functionality, group of features that might align with a particular topic that we're going to cover. For July, our topic is asset map treasures. You might be thinking, so what are you going to talk about? What are you going to cover? That's just it. We're going to focus on all the little hidden gems and treasures of asset maps. So it's pretty rare that we do a webinar where I'm able to talk about so many different features all at once. So the key here is that I'm going to touch on these features. And while I may not take you through the full ins and outs of every little bit of how they work, the goal is all about exposure. My hope is that you will log and write down the things that you want to learn more about, and I'll point you to where you can learn more about them, okay? You can also schedule time with the team. You can call the team, email, use the support center. We've got all these amazing resources, and we'll go from there. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Is this being recorded? Yes, it is. Can you expect the recording? Yes. However, if you are an enterprise client, please be aware that certain enterprises require me to submit the recording for approval first before I can email it to you. So if you don't get an email later today, that is why. Okay, everybody else, you will likely get the replay later today. So that being said, it is being recorded. We'll make sure that you get the resources if and when they become available. Now, start by introducing myself. For those that I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is LiaJean McHenry. You read that right. I have a 2-part first name, okay? Jean is not my middle name. LiaJean is my first name. I have a 2-part middle name. So as you can imagine, 2-part first name, 2-part middle name, a last name that sounds like 2 parts, filling out all those manual test things in elementary school onto the Scantrons in college. It was quite fun for me. Not, okay? All of this to say, I love my name. I'm the only girl on my dad's side of the family. We had to put everyone's name in my name. That being said, I do go by LiaJean, Leah, or LJ. All 3 are acceptable, and I don't have a preference. So quite literally, you choose your own adventure, okay? When it comes to my name, and I'm good with that. I'm our Senior Manager of Customer Success over here at AssetMap. Been here close to 5.5 years. That being said, though, I have been working in the fintech industry for the last decade. Prior to working here at AssetMap, I used to work for a company called eMoney Advisor. Why am I sharing this with you? Simply because I have trained thousands of financial professionals over the last decade. I have a pretty good tap on the pulse of what's working for people and what's not. As I take you through the material today, if you engage or see a section of AssetMap and you're like, I just wonder how I could implement this, like, you can also reach out to our team and we'd be happy to talk to you about that. Whether it's with me or someone on our support team, we're going to make sure that you're taken care of, okay? Because at the end of the day, we do care about you and we want you to be successful. So please let us support you. Our agenda in terms of our topic today is, I kept it light, okay? Because if I was to list off every single thing I'm going to talk to you about today, we would run out of room on this PowerPoint slide. So we're going to stick to calling it Asset Map Treasures and Hidden Gems. Of course, I'll point you to where you can find additional support and resources that cover all the different sections that we're going to talk about. And questions are encouraged. If you have questions, you can use the chat feature in Zoom. You can also use the I think it's called Q&A in Zoom too. Okay, that's perfectly fine. So either way, I do a very good job of staying on top of the questions. Now listen, if your question is applicable to what we're talking about, I will answer it live. If it's not applicable or completely off topic, I love you, but we're going to have to talk about it outside of the webinar, okay? Because sometimes your questions are all very valid, but I have to be respectful to the rest of the group, and we want to make sure that we're staying on topic, okay? That being said, if you do have any case-specific questions, I'll show you again where you can find some great resources, and we'll go from there. All right, so without further ado, let's hop in and let's get this party started. And where we're going to start today is diving into one of our first Asset Map treasures. Now, for those of you that have been with us for a long time, you might be wondering, where's she going to start? Where I'm going to start is the support team, okay? I really do believe that one of the treasures that we have available to you all is the amazing support that you're going to receive from the members of our team. Okay. And when you're in app, you can expand the support center by using the floating help button on the bottom right, or you can click the chat bubble, which is static and always there on the upper right. It doesn't matter. You click on either, it's going to open it up. You can live chat our team, you can email our team, you can call our team via the phone support line, you can even ask to schedule a case review or do a one-on-one. Now, let's set expectations. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a very honest kind of gal. I like to set honest expectations for people. Why? Because I believe that's what sets people up for success, okay? So in terms of if you want to schedule a case review or a one-on-one, please don't wait until 15 minutes before you're going to go in for your meeting when you're like, I need someone to explain to me what a target map is. Please don't do that to yourself, okay? Time management is important, but please also set yourself up for success, because I think we can all attest that in this industry, confidence is key. Okay. And when we're leveraging or implementing new technology, we want to be confident and putting it in front of our clients and our prospects. That means navigating through the platform in a fluid manner. Doesn't mean you have to know where everything is. No, but making sure that you have confidence moving through the areas that you want and or the areas that you're going to present. So if you have an important case review coming up, or an annual review or a client meeting, and you're like, I just want a second pair of eyes to take a look at something with me, or I just want someone to make sure my math and my logic and the way I'm thinking is correct and how I'm viewing this, you can reach out to our support team. But I'll just ask that you try to schedule a day or two in advance. Now, last minute things come up, and I see a lot of familiar names on this list, and I know a lot of those people know better than anyone that if you reach out and you're in a pinch, we will always do our best to assist you. And I think those that have reached out to our support team can agree with me that we have amazing people on our team that will always want to make sure that you're set up for success. So hopefully you've had that experience, and if not, please lean on us because we are here and available. So our support team is available Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. till 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are spread out across the United States, which allows us to cover a broader span of time. Obviously, with the exception if we close like early because it's a holiday, or we're closed because it's a physical holiday, things like that, okay? But know that you can find the resources here. So I wanted to start with that because I think that that's probably one of the biggest things that if you're not leveraging, you should probably start immediately, because we're going to be here to help you. Another hidden gem or a treasure that I love to remind people of is our marketing kit. All of you on today's call have access to a marketing kit with some client-facing flyers and or materials that you can leverage. And really why I like to start with this in the beginning of today's call is because I'm going to take you through features and functionality through what I like to call the typical process of Asset Map, which is step number one, you have to be able to confidently introduce Asset Map and or talk about it. If you're like, how do I introduce it? How do I show people like what this is going to be? Well, we have some resources to help you. One being the marketing kit. In the marketing kit, we have some client-facing materials. We have a free marketing video that you can leverage. It's an animated explainer video. It's about 1 minute and 10 seconds long. It narrates and talks about the power of having a financial professional that can help build you a financial map and organize where you are today so we can focus on where you want to go and how we're going to help you get there. Now, where can you find the marketing kit? Look, you can open up the support center, go to search for help. This is our knowledge base. This is available 24/7. All you have to do is click in here and simply type in the word marketing. Okay, based on your access, you'll have it up at the top. It'll say marketing your practice. It might say something slightly different if you're an enterprise client. Either way, there are the marketing materials and they are going to be available to you. Okay, I'm not going to open them all up and show each of them because we got a lot of things to cover today, people. So remember, we're focusing on exposure. I'm pointing you to where you can go to learn more. The marketing kit is great. Some of those client-facing materials have really good language to help you. While you're in here, you can also type in the word script. We actually have some Asset Map scripts. We have a video version and a PDF version. If you're someone who's new and you're like, I'm just trying to figure out how to talk about this, like how do I even talk about what Asset Map is? The marketing materials help because they can draw inspiration and you can pull language that you like. The scripts help. Okay. And the other thing that you can do is don't forget about sample clients. So you can come in here into your search bar and type in sample. Now, everybody on today's call should have about 6 or 7 fully built out fictional sample clients that they can start playing around with immediately. These are fictional people with fictional information. So you could print out a sample client asset map report, or put one of these sample clients up on the screen and show a prospect like, hey, this is what I'm going to be able to do for you. I'm going to build you an asset map of where you and your family are today. It's going to look something like this. Okay. Are you interested in this? This is an elevated level of service I'm providing to everyone I work with. If this is of interest to you, I'm going to get started and get that created. Okay. So a couple hidden gems to think about: the marketing kit, thinking about the fact that you can leverage sample clients, thinking about the fact that we have those scripts available to you. Okay, those are a couple hidden gems I wanted to start with. Next, I want to focus on, okay, once you've introduced Asset Map, the next step is that you want to start getting household data added in. Okay, and for some of you, how you introduce Asset Map might be creating an Asset Map for an existing client and putting it in front of them. As a gentle reminder, there are 3 different avenues you can go through when trying to get household data added in: manual entry, discovery, and integrations. Okay. For your existing clients, people you've been working with for quite some time, I'm going to recommend that you take the liberty of building their asset map. So 9 out of 10 times, I recommend you do that either manually and or leverage integrations. Integrations are great if you use other technologies where the information for that client is already stored. Why not duplicate your efforts and just import the household from one of those integrations to build a household in asset map? Okay. Now, depending on your tech stack, if integrations aren't applicable to you or you don't have a tremendous amount of data, manual entry, believe it or not, is so fast. And I think that one of the hidden gems that people tend to miss out on is they overlook manual entry. Okay. Don't sleep on manual entry. Okay. Manual entry plus stencils is quite literally my most favorite way to get household data into the application. Why? Because it takes no time at all. Watch. You can click manual entry. You mark if it's a client or a prospect. Okay. So let's say it's a client I've been working with for 5 years. This is the Cullen household. Okay. My primary client's name is Ed Cullen. Okay. He's 45 years old, gender, male. I can add his birthday later. I have it on file, but I'm not going to put it up on the screen in front of you today. Ed is married to his wife, Bella. Okay. Y'all catching on the characters I'm using here today? Edward Cullen, Bella Swan. Shout out to my Twilight fans. And if you don't like Twilight, don't talk to me about it, because it can do no wrong in my eyes. Team Edward for life. So I'm going to add in Bella here. Okay. 45 years old, gender female, and relationship spouse. So look, they have a daughter, they have a business. I can add it later. All I have to do is scroll down and click add household. In seconds, this household gets created. And sure, I could come over here to my menu on the left and use my actions menu, and I could manually add all the things I know about them. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Okay. Somebody just chatted something into the chat and it was distracting me, but they're talking to me about Twilight. I'll talk to you about that later. Anyway, so all of this to say, okay, you can open up a household, you can use your menu over on the left, and you can open that and add those instruments one by one. Now, that's all well and good, but let's be honest. In my opinion, one of the best ways to get household data added is to just use a stencil from the very beginning. As a best practice, you can right-click your mouse. That's a hidden gem. Right there. This is your quick actions menu. When you're on a digital asset map, you will always have your full actions menu on the upper left, but you can also right-click your mouse at any time and access your quick actions menu. From here, you can see it's simply a condensed version of pretty much the full menu that you see over on the left. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click stencil and I'm going to click apply. My stencils will be blank for all of you unless you've created your own custom stencils. And if you're relatively new, perhaps you haven't done that yet. That's perfectly fine. You also don't have to create your own custom stencils because we give you a public library. And the public library has 20 plus custom built stencils that you can pick and choose from. Now, don't get overwhelmed with this, okay? I actually had a gal, she called me the other day and she said, you know, I'm a little overwhelmed by stencils. There's just so many to choose from. And I told her, I said, listen, your feelings are completely valid, but the reality is that you're probably going to use the same stencil that you like best over and over and over again. Okay. You can comb through this list in your own time. Most of our stencils are based off of occupation, time of life, generation. When in doubt, use stencil number 1, the traditional fact finder. As a reminder, there's a little preview button to the left of each stencil. So even before you decide to overlay one, you can preview it. And you can say, do I like the stencil that this is, the placeholders that make up this stencil? Now, if you're not familiar with stencils, stencils are comprised of placeholders. They represent different kinds of financial instruments that a household may or may not have. The intention of a stencil is to help us fact find and fill in gaps. So these are great to overlay onto households that you have limited information or knowledge of so that you can engage them and continue the fact finding process. But what people tend to forget is that even in the very beginning, you can manually enter a client you've been working with for 10 years, immediately overlay a stencil, and you can use this as a guide for yourself. And it's a heck of a lot faster. Let's say if integrations aren't an option for you, which somebody actually just chatted and they said, what technology integrates with Asset Map? You can look at that in app. All you have to do is click on your main menu and go to integrations. And that'll show you the list of integrations that are available to you. Okay, I'm not going to go through the list on today's call because it won't necessarily be applicable to everyone. Now, once I have this stencil overlaid, one of the key things I can do is I can save the things that are applicable, right? I know that Ed, he works for ABC Network and he's a producer. So I can come in here and I can say ABC producer. This is going to be his salary. And I know that he's making $200,000 a year. Great. I can come in here. And what's nice about this is that I'm not adding this completely from scratch. I have like the shell of the tile already there for me. It's so much faster though, right? Ed has a social security statement he provided to me. It says he's going to get $30,000 if he takes us at 67. I open up the placeholder, I add the details. Yeah, you may have to make some minor modifications. You might even want to add the person's name in here. I like to follow that. I tend to like to call for the reference name, I like to put whose is it, what is it, where is it located. Sometimes for Social Security, I'll put like SSI for Social Security income. It's up to you. Okay, you click update, it saves it as a permanent piece. This is so much faster than me having to go through. And if you're in a pinch, if you're like, let me just save what's applicable. I manage a Roth IRA for him. I'll save that. I'll add the details later. I manage a brokerage private account for him. I'll add that later. We just got him set up with an annuity that's under my management. I'll add that later, right? With a stencil, you can click in and simply click update to save the pieces. Now, if you're playing around with stencils and you overlay one that you don't like or you didn't mean to, or let's say you go through the example and you fact find what you need, you don't forget that a hidden gem is you can right click your mouse, click stencil, and click clear. Okay, you can clear out all the remaining pieces of a stencil all at once. Now, where stencils commonly get used the most is a next step after the Discovery Fact Finder. For those that aren't familiar, the Discovery Fact Finder is a great way to onboard leads, prospects, new clients. Why? You generate a link to a blank digital fact finder. You send it to the lead or the prospect. Most people are leveraging this as a pre-meeting requisite, right? Fill this out prior to our meeting. Should take you less than 10 or 15 minutes to complete. We don't ask for account numbers, birth dates, or social security. When you go into Discovery, each advisor has two separate options they can leverage, outbound or inbound. Now, Asset Map's Discovery Fact Finder, the questions are preset and the same, whether we send someone through outbound or inbound. Okay, what's the difference then? Why are there two different options? Well, outbound is I know the name of the person I want to send through this experience, and I want to pre-brand the welcome page with their name on it. Great. So I can come in here and I can say I'm working with a guy named Miller Nelson. Okay. Miller Nelson's coming in for a prospective client meeting Monday at 10 a.m. Great. I type in Miller's name. I click initiate interview. Just like that, I created a unique outbound link. It's my responsibility to copy this link, send it to Miller, and set the expectation he needs to fill this out prior to our meeting on Monday. Okay, a couple different ways we can share it. Launch Now shows you exactly what the experience is going to look like for Miller when he clicks on the link. It's going to be pre-branded with his name on it. And it's going to be a great extension of you, your profile picture, your name, unless you're set up in an office setup and you have firm level discovery turned on. And we're going to let him know, hey, Miller, we're going to ask you about X, Y, and Z, and this should probably take you less than 15 minutes to complete. Okay. Hidden gem for those on the elite level subscription, don't forget that you get to pick a custom discovery color. So you get to pick the color of the button and the banner. It's one color, you get to pick it, and that can be determined in your team settings area. Okay, if you, when you log in, don't have access in your main menu to a team settings area, either that A means that you are on an enterprise, which means that information gets dictated by your employer, okay? or it means that you're not a team manager on your team, okay? Like if you're in an office setup or something like that, and there might be like an approved person on your team that has to do that. So just be mindful. While we're here in the main menu though, let's talk about something. One of the key things that people often forget is that when it comes to discovery, whether you're using outbound or inbound, which outbound, you're typing in a person's name, creating a link, sending it off to them. Inbound is one link handy you can send to anyone at any time. Okay, that's great. If you, when in doubt, if you're like, I need one link handy that I can do an email template for, or I'm going to do an email campaign, you're going to use your inbound link. Why? Because it's gated. Number one, it's a great extension of you. You're front and center. I do look like this sometimes when I put in the effort. Okay. In short, you send your link off to someone. All they have to do is type in their name. Okay. They type in their email address. They mark that they're not a robot. They click continue. Watch what happens. They get a pre-branded welcome page. They can go through the preset series of questions. So one of the things I commonly see, and to be honest, it kills me to my core when I see that people haven't set this up. It's not your fault if you haven't, to be clear, because maybe you haven't come to training or anything like that. You need to make sure your discovery is branded to you. Where do you do that? Each of you need to come up here into your main menu and go to your user preferences section. Within your user preferences section, this is where you can add your profile picture. If you don't add a profile picture, there's a silhouette of a cartoon avatar. It looks like a photo should be there and there's no photo. Does it look bad? This is being recorded, so I'm not going to say it looks bad because it really doesn't look bad. It just doesn't look as good as being an extension of yourself. So listen, you don't like any pictures of yourself, that's fine. That's me every other day. But you need to add something in there, even if it's just your logo for the time being or something, okay? But ideally, you want it to be your profile picture because the discovery is going to have your name and be branded to you. While we're here, each of you need to make sure your contact information is up to date. Okay, your contact information flows through to every single client deliverable that you generate. So as you can imagine, if this information is not up to date and or correct, that could pose a problem for you long term. Now, a little hidden area that often gets overlooked is the suffix section. If they don't have a suffix, this is, or rather you don't have a suffix, this is also the best place for you to add any of your designations. CFP, listen, there's 1,010,000 out there. I'm not going to list all of them out there, but if you have designations, you worked hard for those, make sure that you add them here. You can separate them by commas in the suffix section. When you update your contact information, just click update. Okay. Now, a question came into the chat earlier today, and I didn't ignore it. I rather tabled it because I was going to point it out to you in this area. The question was there a way to change the male and female icon? And the answer is yes. So number one, you have to come into your user preferences and decide what style of avatars do you want to use within your households, okay? And there's gender specific or gender neutral. So we recently updated our avatars to have a new look and design and feel, okay? They look great in the platform. If you use gender specific, their avatar will go off of whatever gender you select. So there's either male, female, or not specified, okay? And you can go into a household, click into a member and change their gender at any time, or you can decide, you know what, I would prefer to use gender neutral, you know, because people are like, I don't like the way the hair looks, or I don't like the tie, or whatever. Fine. Okay. You can pick between them here. Okay. Now, all of this to say, if you don't like the avatars, your feelings are valid and you're welcome to communicate that to our team. But as of today, these are the avatars that you can choose from. And I'm saying that because some people have provided feedback to me just now in the chat, and I see what you're saying, but this is what's available at this time. Okay, so if you do have feelings about it, you are welcome to reach out to our support team and you can submit that feedback and we'll take that back to the product team. Now, while I'm here, I also want to show you a little hidden gem that people often always overlook. Did you know that you can pick what the default household start page is? It could be the household summary page or the asset map. Now, you might be saying, what are you even talking about? Well, let's go to a household real quick, okay? I'm going to open up a household here. I'm going to go to it. Notice how I just opened up this household. This is the default page. This is what we call the household summary page. You can click into all the tiles that you see here on the screen. But a piece of feedback we kept receiving was like, advisors were like, listen, it's kind of annoying that every time I go into a household I've already created, it takes me to the household summary page, and then I got to click on the asset map to take me into the asset map. I just want it to go to the asset map every time I open up a household. If that's the case, you're going to come up here go to your user preferences, okay? And underneath your application settings, you're gonna say, start every household when I click into it on their asset map. And if you wanna do that, you click that here and you click update, and there you go. You can go there from there moving forward. Okay, so I just wanna mention that to the team. By the way, if you accidentally delete a household, like I'm talking, you accidentally completely delete it, okay? And it was a mistake. You didn't mean to. Don't panic, because did you know that we have a 30-day fail-safe built into the application? If you accidentally deleted an entire household and you didn't mean to, you can pull it back as long as you catch it within 30 days. And you can do that right here in your user preferences under Manage Deleted Households. Okay, so you can go ahead and select that there. Now, that being said, let's go ahead and continue moving on. Where I'd like to continue is this concept of stencils. So, like I said, after the Discovery Fact Finder, one of the most natural next steps is to apply a stencil. Now, you cannot send an already existing household through Discovery. Let's address that elephant in the room right now, okay? So if you've already manually entered a client you've been working with for 5 years, you added everything you know about them, you're not going to send them through Discovery. Because if I add Tom and Diane Smith manually today, I add the things I manage, but then I send them through Discovery, they're going to get a blank digital fact finder. They're going to fill everything out from scratch. And then when it clicks all done, there's going to be 2 separate Tom and Diane Smith households in Asset Map. That's a waste of everybody's time as far as I'm concerned, okay? You got to pick a method, and we want to follow a process that makes sense. So this is what I always say to people. If you want to send someone through the digital fact finder, which is Discovery, you start there first. You send them through Discovery, they go through it, they click all done. It adds a household in Asset Map. From there, you can tie an integration to that household. From there, you can continue to manually update and or add information at any time, okay? You can do that. Now, here's a household that just came through Discovery for me a couple weeks ago. You can see to the right, it's 100% complete, meaning this prospect went through, added what they could, went to the end, clicked all done. Okay, now over here, I can click this Go to Household option. I can also download a report that will summarize everything they entered and selected. This is a little hidden gem. People overlook it all the time. One thing I like about this little report is at the top, it tells you how long it took them to fill it out. I do think that's valuable. Clicking into the household itself, I can go right into the asset map and I can see everything they entered and selected. Now, I always train to this. If you're looking at a household and it looks like you're missing information, your natural next step is you should be applying a stencil. You should engage those people and continue to fact find and fill in gaps. Why? Ladies and gentlemen, the asset map, this visual representation is an asset. And that I will climb to the top of the hill and die on that hill for the rest of my life, because I will attest to that. An asset map is an asset for people's estate. And I'm going to tell you, I've onboarded lots of firms and offices and individual advisors, and they are finding success in positioning it that way. Jack, Diane, I am taking the liberty of building you a financial map of where you and your family are today. I believe that this is not only vital for our relationship so that we can always be on the same page, but more importantly, this is an asset for your estate. God forbid something happens to either one of you, your family members are going to have an idea of what's there. And you can rest easy, because if someone looked at your map prematurely, like there's no account numbers or anything listed on it. But you know, if one of you primarily is the one that manages all the accounts, it's important that we have a record of what's there. So in the event something happens, we have a place that we can turn to and can guide one another. Would you not agree? Now, before I would even think about putting this asset map in front of these people, I would overlay a stencil. I'd right click my mouse, come to stencils, click apply, come to the public library. I could use the first one if I want to. I can pick any stencil, but let's say I'm just going to use the traditional fact finder, which tends to be my go-to because it covers a lot of the basics, right? You can overlay the whole stencil in its entirety. But what people forget is, as a best practice, you should be applying the stencil prior to your meeting, and then you should be cleaning it up. Why? Because if you take an existing household with some information and then overlay a stencil, it's likely that you may have some stencil placeholders that are duplicative of the information that you already have. It's also a good idea to remove any tiles that you're A, not prepared to talk about, or B, it's not applicable based on what you already know. A hidden gem I want to remind everyone of is on the upper right. This is your search and select tool. You can leverage this at any time. When you turn this tool on, Okay, it can be found on the digital asset map. That allows you to select physical instruments and stencil placeholders. All these tiles outlined in light gray with a dollar value are a stencil placeholder. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that I clean this up. These people don't have pensions. They told me that. They already told me their salaries. They gave me placeholders and or social security statements already. I don't want to talk about long-term care or individual disability day one. And do I need every stinking type of life insurance listed here? Maybe not. Scrolling down, right? I don't want to talk about alternative investments. I know that these people have paid off all their personal debt and they own the one home. Great. You don't need clutter on the asset map, so be intentional. Overlay a stencil, select the pieces you want to get rid of, click delete. And just like that, in seconds, I'm in a much better place to now put this in front of these people so that when they come in, I can say, Jack, Diane, I started building this financial map for you. How this is structured is the two of you are featured in the middle, your jointly owned assets down below. Up top is your umbrella. Think of this as protection assets, things like insurance, things like legal instruments. To each of your respective sides, we've got your cash flow income sources followed by your individual assets. Now, a hidden gem that you could use within your client meeting is also on the upper right is the marker tool. We give you two defaulted colors, red and black, and then my personal favorite, custom color paint tray. Why? Because I just love to pick a custom color, okay? And you can draw on the screen. We also have keyboard shortcuts that you can use if you're somebody who wants to be able to turn things on and turn things off with the click of a keyboard button, right? You can do that. So something to consider. So just know that the marker tool is a hidden gem, and while the marker tool is strictly for within Asset Map and it's designed for you to use in an interactive way, it allows you to be able to say, hey, is this salary up to date? It is. Okay, great. What about the social security statement? You haven't sent it over to me. Okay. And you can kind of go from there. Now, as we continue on, okay, a lot of you have access to Sidebar. I mean, everybody on today's call has access to Sidebar. It's just a matter of whether or not you're using it. So if you're unaware, Sidebar, you can open and or close it at any time on the right-hand side. Now, if you log in later today and you go to a digital asset map and you don't see Sidebar and you don't see a tab on the bottom right to open and or close, that means you just have to turn it on. You only have to turn it on one time. You right-click your mouse for your quick actions menu, come to toggle visibility and make sure Sidebar is checked on. You check it on once, Sidebar will be available in every household you work on moving forward. Okay. Now, with Sidebar, when it's enabled and opened, meaning you can see the applets on the right, that means if you click on an instrument or a member, it opens the information to the right-hand side of the screen. You then work through the tabs vertically top to bottom. Okay, that's how you enter data. Now, we released Sidebar a handful of months ago and people love it, right? Because the feedback of why we created Sidebar was people were like, well, listen, I want to see the whole asset map at all times. And when I click into an instrument, I want the info to open to the right so that we can add it top to bottom. Okay, great. Now, that being said, you can exit out of your Sidebar. You can tuck it in, or as I like to say, close it for now. And if your Sidebar is closed, that means if you click on a member or an instrument, it opens the module in the middle of the screen instead. The reason we created Sidebar was because feedback came from this view, which was like, I can't see what's behind it. I don't like that. Here's the thing. It comes down to preference, ladies and gentlemen. Some people prefer this look and feel. Frankly, I do, okay? Because I'm a creature of habit and I've been working here for 5.5 years. Sidebar is great and I can use Sidebar very, very efficiently. And if I was adding something live in front of a client, I might use Sidebar over this original format. But if I'm doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, I personally prefer this view. It does come down to preference, okay? So if half of you love entering data through Sidebar and half of you don't, that's perfectly fine. The only difference is that when you open something in this form and view, you work through the tabs horizontally along the top instead. That's the only difference, okay? Now, that being said, please just be mindful that in Sidebar, I like to keep it readily available to open at any time because we have added some additional things like the plus mark that allows you to manually add anything quickly. You can access and add legal instruments here. You can view signals in Sidebar. You can view any target maps in Sidebar. And we'll talk more about those when we get to some of those best practices in just a little bit. Now, where I'd like to move to is I'd like to move to a existing household that I've pre-created in preparation for today's call, just to kind of show you that the goal is really always to get you here. The goal is to get you to a household where we have built out their asset map to the best of our ability based on the things that we know about them. Okay? And even with a household like this, if I know all of their details, I can still leverage stencils. I can right click my mouse, click stencil, click apply. And with households where we have a lot of their data already, I actually recommend that the #1 stencil to use, where you might want to be very specific to say, only apply these couple stencil placeholders to this specific household. Option #2 is the best one for that. It's the only one that's designed to be this way. It's called the building block stencil. All you have to do is, instead of applying it in full yes, you're going to select no. And then you select by topic, and you can only do one at a time. So I might say, you know what, I want to put a long-term care placeholder to Neil, and click apply. And look, all it's going to do is take a long-term care placeholder stencil and put it attached to Neil. So, hey, if I'm preparing for an annual review and we want to start the conversation of long-term care, how great would it be to intentionally put a stencil? Not only is it a reminder for me to not forget to talk about it, but better yet, this is a visual representation that they can see, and they might notice it first and point it out to me. Okay. So I'm peppering in some extra things about stencils because there's a lot of hidden gems there that I think that people frankly just forget about or they didn't know. Where I'll wrap up with stencils is when you go to create your own custom, in my opinion, the easiest thing to do is when you go to access stencils, go to your public library, pick a stencil that you like that you might just want to manipulate. So like if I like this stencil best, but I just kind of want to fine tune it to make it unique to something more specific that I prefer, you should just make a copy of that stencil. Once it takes a couple minutes to do that, once it makes a copy of it, then you can open up the stencil from your household index list and you can manipulate, add, remove, rename. And if you need help with that, you can reach out to the support team. You can also just come into the support center and go to search for help. And you can say, make a copy of a stencil. And we have support articles and resources that will help you. Okay. Couple hidden gems that people forget about. You can actually add emojis to the asset map. Now, you'll notice, you might be saying, why is there a purple dot? Why is there an orange dot? Why is there a question mark? These are emojis. If you click into anywhere in Asset Map where there is a free text field for reference name or location, you can right-click your mouse and you can access emojis if you're on a Windows computer. If you are on an Apple computer, you have to double-click your keypad. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are all business professionals, okay? So you're not going to get crazy with the emojis. I'm a big proponent of using like colored dots or question marks or check boxes and things like that. You know, keep it as light and standard as you can. For example, in this particular scenario, I actually added a hypothetical account that I want to propose to them. Okay, this is a new life insurance policy. They don't currently have it. And frankly, I don't want them to think that I put it here assuming that they're going to get it. So I actually wanted to draw attention to it by putting a purple dot so that when we talk about this in the annual review, I can say, listen, I put this here intentionally because I want to talk to you about it. This is something that does not exist. That's why I put a purple dot. Okay, just like if I'm preparing for an annual review and I heard through the grapevine, or maybe because I stalk them on LinkedIn, okay, that's kind of creepy, don't stalk people, but let's just say you follow a lot of your clients on LinkedIn. We saw that Lauren got this great big promotion. Okay, great. Well, maybe in preparation for this annual review, I came to her asset map, came into her salary, put a question mark. Why? Because in the notes tab, I wanted to put some intentional questions I don't want to forget to ask. Now, for those that aren't leveraging the notes section, within every member, entity, and instrument, you can add notes. You can use this note section for action items, next steps. It could be client-facing or strictly internal note keeping. It is up to you. The only way that a client is going to see the note section is if you open up a note in front of them. All the notes also flow through here to the interactive notes section, so they're only going to see this if you open up this note section in front of them. And or in the reports area, there is a report called none other than notes. Our default is to not include it because we don't know what you're using the notes section for. Okay, so please just be mindful that notes are a hidden gem, and we did add some enhancements into the notes section actually recently where now you can actually add in bullets whether it's bullet or numbers. You can also add colored text. Okay, you can add hyperlinks, things like that too. If you needed to like add a link to link out to another tool that you might be using. Lots of innovative ways that you can start using the notes section. Now, while we're here, I also want to remind you that there are some hidden gems that people tend to forget about, one being the calculator feature. So within Asset Map, in every section where there's a value field, you can actually leverage a hidden calculator. So let's say that I'm coming in here and I'm going to add some rental income for a shore house. Okay, I'm going to call this like shore rental income. Okay, great. So I can call this like Airbnb, okay, whatever they want. Now, let's say that they give me a monthly amount and my brain just ain't mathing, okay? Everything in Asset Map for the most part is an annual amount. So you have to calculate what the annual amount is. Sometimes your brain just ain't braining when it comes to math. You can leverage this quick calculator. Any value field in Asset Map, to access this hidden calculator, you use the equal symbol. The equal symbol turns it on. Then you type in your first number. So let's say that they say they're getting about $2,654 a month. Great. So I add $2,654. Then you have to decide, am I doing division, multiplication, addition, or subtraction? If it's addition, it's a plus mark. If it's subtraction, it's a minus. If it's division, it's a /, okay? And if it's multiplication, it's the asterisk symbol. So I'm going to say 2,654 times 12. You hit enter, it does the math for you, okay? It's small, but it's there, and I like to point it out to people. For start date, I'll mark as of today, because by the way, we don't care about the past when it comes to cash flows, okay? We're looking at today, moving forward. And then end age, I can put whenever I think that they're going to retire. Okay, and I can mark that there's a relevant member. So sometimes I forget to do that and it will remind you, thank God. And then we can click create and then it'll add it over there. Okay, you can also add negative cash flows if you want to illustrate expenses. Okay, please be mindful that negative cash flows do not flow through to target maps and things like that. So you'll be kind of, I'm not saying duplicating your efforts, but just be aware that like liabilities and negative cash flows do not flow through to target maps. So if they need to be included, you'll just add them off. Okay. Question just came into the chat. How do I turn off sidebar completely? Meaning you don't want it. You just right click your mouse, come to toggle visibility and uncheck sidebar. You do it once and you will not find sidebar in any of your households moving forward, but you can turn it back on at any time. You just have to follow those steps. Okay. One hidden gem also at the very bottom of the asset map here is the legend, okay? I like to keep the legend in view. I think that that is particularly valuable because it shows why boxes are outlined in the colors that they are. So if you're somebody who's like still learning asset map, anything outlined in bright teal is a cash flow. Anything outlined in pink is a retirement asset. I had a gentleman call me the other day. He's like, it's red. I said, it's not red. It's pink. He's like, it's red. I said, I know it looks red, but it's not red. I promise you, it's pink. And I had him turn on the legend. And I think his concern was, he's like, people are going to think it's red. Well, you can avoid that conversation by showcasing them. It's actually hot pink. And you can see that down here in the legend. Okay. That should clear anything up. It's not red. It's pink. All right. Now, I want to go over a hidden little feature that we have called the hide show. Okay, and this is actually pertaining to the question that just came into the chat. What's the hidden toggle? Okay, well, what they're referencing is when you right click your mouse and you come to toggle visibility, there's a hidden tile here. Okay, if you check it on, it'll show anything that's hidden. I actually find that the easiest way to leverage this is to simply just use your search and select tool. Okay, see how I had these two expenses here? I hid them. So because I hid them, they are hidden from the asset map. All right. Now, all of this to say, I can bring them back at any time. So let me show you how this works. First, I'm going to select these two, and I know they're hidden because they are grayed out and they have these little lines over them. If I click the unhide button, okay, up here, if you ever wondered what hide and unhide is, this is where sometimes you might want to take certain instruments, expenses, assets, like future inheritance, accounts that maybe are owned by another, and maybe periodically you want to hide it from their asset map. Why? Because maybe we don't want to talk about it 24/7. Okay, let's say I want to hide these two expenses because, you know, I actually prefer to group them and just call it 65. And then if I need to break it out for them, I can include it. But right now I'm basically double counting all these expenses. So I want to hide these two. What you can do is open up your search and select tool, hide these or take these two tiles and click hide. If you click hide, it's not deleting them. It's simply removing them from view. Okay. When you hide them, they get removed. They would not be on the report printout. They will not flow through anywhere else in the application. You click your search and select tool again, it shows what's hidden. Okay. And then you can reselect them and then unhide them. That is what that toggle visibility is. If you right click your mouse, click toggle visibility and go over where it says hidden, it would show any of those accounts that are hidden. I don't see that being used all that much now that we have the search and select tool, but because the question came in and I do think it's applicable, I added in there. Okay. Now that being said, let's continue on. Don't forget that up along the top, even though the default is to show the primary client and the spouse in the middle, you can deselect and isolate one person at a time. I can have just a conversation with Neil. I could put Neil side by side next to his mom. God forbid she has a long-term care event. What does she have? Can her assets cover that? Or is that going to fall on Neil? Because she lives in his house. And if, man, something happens and she doesn't have a plan in place, that could completely disrupt his retirement. What about sending his child to school? His kid's only 11. You know, that could be a problem. You can also turn on every single member and entity. And we actually added this new little shortcut called all. Okay, so look, if I go back to the default, which is Neil and Lauren, you can just click all and it immediately includes everybody up at the top. If you uncheck all, it will revert back to the default, which is the primary client and the spouse or whoever you had selected. So a hidden gem to remind you that if we need to have conversations, we can. I could say, you know what, let's just talk about the business. Let's just talk about the business. The business owns these pieces of property. Those pieces of property are producing this income. Now, while we're on this business, let's talk about something. When you add in a trust or a business or any type of an entity, there's a hidden gem here called assign entity ownership. This allows you to say, hey, my primary client who's linked to this business only owns 80% of it. If you uncheck assign entity ownership, it doesn't allow you to select an ownership percentage. It just says, hey, this guy's tied to this business. Now, if I leave it like that, if I uncheck assign entity ownership, look how this looks. If I put Neil next to the business, all the things related to the business will appear on Neil's map, but be shaded in yellow. If you look down in your legend, that means owned by another. Okay, because it's owned by the business. He's affiliated with the business. However, we got a lot of feedback from people that are like, but sometimes like that's not accurate because he only owns like a piece of it, right? So here's what you can do. You go back into the entity, you say assign entity ownership. I could say, hey, this guy owns 80%. I click update, watch what happens. Number one, I think it's so much cleaner because it rolls everything up. So out of the income owned by the business, it shows 80% of what that income is that he owns, which is 116. You click on it and then it breaks down what 80% of those income streams are. See, look, Hawaii house, the total rental income for the Hawaii house is 60%, but he owns 80% of that, therefore it's 48, right? The Spain casita, his portion, 80% is 34, but the actual full total is 42. You get the gist. We do the same thing down below with the physical property. We say those three pieces of property owned by this business, 80% of that total that you own is 1.3 million. And here's the percentages for each of those properties. So I wanted to show that to the group because it does tend to be a crowd favorite and often something that gets overlooked. Now, another thing is that you can clone instruments, okay? Let's say, for example, we don't have this Social Security. I'm going to delete it, all right? I'm just going to delete it. Let's say I'm adding their Social Security and I just added Neil's. Instead of having to completely add one from scratch for his wife, instead I can click the Clone Instrument button. If I click Clone Instrument, look what it does. It creates an exact carbon copy. I know that because it says copy now in the name. All you have to do is deselect Neil, put Lauren instead, look up her statement. Hers maybe says that she's going to get $37,500 if she takes it at 67. I can update this, okay, make this clean. All I have to do is update the name, switch it to Lauren's, and all I have to do is click update, and just like that, it's so much faster. And if you're wondering, why is the Social Security kind of grayed out? Because It's expected, meaning it's not available now, but it will be available in the future. Okay. So we've talked about a lot of things today. Sidebar, the calculator feature. Speaking of calculators, we actually have a really great support article that people do tend to love, which is called Financial Calculators. If you have access to that, you can just click your chat bubble on the upper right, come to search for help, and you can see, type in financial calculators. We have a really great resource. Now, these are just like third-party calculators that we've kind of gathered from, being online. Doesn't, like, if you're affiliated with a broker dealer or something, you might be required to use very specific calculators. So disclaimer, don't come for us. You know what I mean? Like, it's on you to know what you're permitted to use. But if you're somebody who's like, I just need to see a few examples of some calculators and things like that, we do have a Soul Support article that does tend to be a crowd favorite. Shout out to Michael Schwab, who is our director of customer support. He's amazing. He makes a lot of our support articles and support content that are here to support all of you, and it's awesome. Now, here's one of my most favorite hidden gems. Okay, let's say that I click into, I don't know, let's say I click into the 401k and I click the delete button. Dang it, I didn't mean to delete that. Oh no, so sad. Am I going to go cry about it? No, you don't have to. You know why? Because you have 30 days to pull that instrument back. But people don't know this, I think, because they just don't come to training, or I don't know, it drives me nuts. But anyway, that's why you come to training like this, where you can learn from me, okay? So let's say you accidentally delete an instrument. You didn't mean to. That's okay. We all have those days, okay? And actually the other day, I full-blown deleted a full-blown household that I just finished creating. It took me like 30 minutes to put, it was a huge household. I did the whole thing and I accidentally deleted it. And I thought, thank God we have the 30-day fail-safe window, and I was able to bring it back in seconds. Now, you can delete an entire household and bring it back. But you can also be in a specific household and have just deleted an instrument or a member, and you can pull it back. Where do you do that in a household? You're going to go here to the household summary page. Next to the households on the summary page, next to the household name, you're going to click edit. And there's going to be a deleted items tab. This is going to be where you come, and if you recently deleted a member by accident, you can pull them back here under the members tab. Come to financials. If you accidentally deleted a policy or something like that, you come in here. There's Neil's traditional 401k. I just deleted it a minute ago. I didn't mean to. Scroll up. You can click restore selected. Go back to the asset map. Refresh your screen. Okay. Got to do a little refresh. Then all I have to do is scroll down and look. It's right back where it belongs. Home safe in this household. So just know that restore selected is great. And we can go from there. Now, how do you mark what's under your management and what's not? All you have to do is click into an instrument and check this box right here, under management or not. By the way, if you're ever adding in a retirement account and it is a Roth, the only way that a target map is going to pick up that it's a Roth is if you mark Roth features. So even if you called this like Neil's Roth IRA, when you get to a target map, it's still going to add a tax rate to it because it just looks at it as a retirement asset. The only way that a target map is going to pick up if it's a Roth asset is you have to mark that it's Roth features, and therefore it'll default that there's no tax rate. Okay. And we'll go from there. So just know that marking what is under your management is important. Why? Because you might want to use features like key financial figures or leverage your household index list to mine for opportunities. The data is only as good as the data that you get entered in the application. Our system default is to assume that everything that gets added is held outside of your management, because legally we're not going to assume the opposite, right? So it is up to you to do your due diligence. Now, there's a hidden gem that will be a slight indicator visually on the map that'll show which tiles are under your management versus which are not. If you look very closely, okay, look over here. Notice that like on this joint TOD or this like joint checking account, see how there's an asterisk symbol next to the location? See up here for the group disability, asterisk symbol. See up here for the group life, asterisk symbol. That means it's held outside of your management. Anything that doesn't have an asterisk symbol, like this Neil's traditional 401k, there's no asterisk symbol next to the location. That's because it's under my management. Now, here's why this is important. In every household, there's a key financial figures section. Key financial figures are a roll-up summary of the entire household. So these are not just the primary client and spouse. It's every single member, every single entity, the totals of those assets, those liabilities, those net worth for across every member of the household. So it's not just the primary client and spouse. It's a roll-up summary for the entire household. Now, the only way that these things that show like under management versus not, like those are totals are only going to be accurate if you're properly marking what's under your management and what's not. Now, you can view these key financial figures within every household, and on the household summary page, there's a key financials tile. You can click the little 3 dots here. You can actually come in here and you can select which 5 key financial figures you want to appear on the summary tile of all of your households, and which 5 key financial figures you want to appear at the bottom of the digital asset map. Summary is the summary tile. Asset map is the bottom of the asset map. So if you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, this is what I'm talking about. This is the summary tile, and on the asset map down at the bottom are the key financial figures. Now, don't come for me and say, it doesn't show that it's a roll-up summary. Yes, it does. We literally put a little statement that says these values reflect the entire household's key financial figures, not the selected members. So look, net worth, it's not going to just be these 2 people's net worth. It's every single member and entity of this household. It's everybody's net worth. Okay, so this is where you have to decide, are you comfortable with that? And if you're not comfortable with that, then perhaps you will remove key financial figures from appearing at the bottom of the asset map, or just make sure that you're able to explain it. Okay, and I have recently received some feedbacks from some people about key financial figures and how they'd like it to be different in the future. And honestly, the feedback was great and it's completely valid. And this is a good time for me to point out to all of you that whenever you have product suggestions or feedback, you can click on your main menu on the right and you can come right here to the feedback section. So usually if you reach out to support and you're like, I have product feedback, we're coming and doing this on your behalf. But it is important that if a lot of you want to see enhancements or adjustments, like you got to submit the feedback, okay? A lot of the reasons why we've made enhancements directly to our platform is from feedback from people like you. So your feedback is valid. I can never promise that it's 100% going to get done because that's unrealistic. I can't make that promise to you. But what I can promise is that it will be taken into consideration and it will be reviewed, okay? And we can go for that. Now, last couple things to remind you all of, and final hidden gems as we get close to our time slot here. I wanted to remind everybody that in the report section, whenever you generate a report, we actually, for those of you, some of you that are enterprise clients, this may not be available to you at this time. It could be something that becomes available to you in the future. But for a lot of you, you have access to report history. So you'll actually be able to see the reports that you've generated. We basically save a copy of it here into the history tab so that you can refer back to it over time. Again, if you don't see the history section, it's likely because you're an enterprise client, and it's likely that we are under review with your compliance team on trying to get that approved and or get that added. So just be disclaimer, okay? I like to be honest with everybody there. Last couple things. Don't forget that within signals, okay, you can snooze a signal. So if you're not familiar with signals, I'm not going to have time to go through all of them today, but basically they're a screening tool. They bring to your attention if there's an area that you might need to dive into deeper. But if these people are like in their mid 40s, I'm not talking about long-term care yet necessarily, right? Or if they're like 35, I might not be talking about long-term care. I can snooze a signal. If you snooze a signal, it basically grays it out. It's still running behind the scenes. It basically just says, hey, I'm tabling this for now. We're going to talk about this later. You can wake a signal at any time. You can see the details of a signal. And don't forget that one of the benefits of leveraging Sidebar is that you can view signals in Sidebar. And an enhancement that we made just a couple weeks ago, or I think it might have been a couple months, is you can view the signal in Sidebar. And for the first time ever, you can click Show Related Financials, and it'll actually isolate what that signal is taking into consideration and looking at this household's asset map. So while we don't share the algorithms for signals, we are providing more insight to you as to what is being taken into consideration, and then you can go from there. The same thing is actually applicable here for target maps as well. So when you've ran target maps, you can see that here, and you actually can click Show Related Financials. The difference is with target maps, the only thing it's going to isolate is what you've checked on during that target map that's going to be applied and used towards the funding of that goal or that need. Okay, and we can kind of go from there. All right, everybody, that's where we're going to stop today. There are also some hidden gems, just very briefly, in target maps to consider. Things like filters up at the top. Like you can see, I have tons of target maps built. From a presentation standpoint, I can isolate by type under the filter. Like if I just want to focus on loss of life, and then from there, I can flip to retirement. If I want to have that conversation, you can leverage those filters. You can also select 1 up to 3 target maps and put them into compare mode. And we have target map comparisons. So this just allows you to kind of isolate 1 to 3 scenarios at a time, have a conversation, and go from there. Now, we are at time, so where I'd like to wrap up today is with the following. I'll do a quick poll for the group, and if you need to jump, you feel free to do so. My first question to you is, do you love Asset Map? And if you do, are you willing to leave us a review? It's okay if you don't want to. I just ask every time because it's at least worth asking, okay? If you love Asset Map and you want to share why you love it, feel free to fill out a G2 review for us. G2, if you're not familiar, is a very reputable site where you can go to learn about other technology in this business. If you are willing to leave us a quick review, feel free to do that. I just posted the link in the chat, and I'll also provide it in the email follow-up. So thanks to those of you that said yes. I will go ahead and I will share that over to the people that said yes. Again, I just posted the link in the chat, and we'll go from there. As we wrap up today, please always be on the lookout. Next month's Accelerate series is going to be very exciting. We'll be covering basically a summer product wrap up, if you will, of kind of sharing newer features that have recently been released, things that are potentially coming down the pipeline for some of you that are enterprise clients. For those that said that you would like to leave us an honest review, thank you for that. Feel free to click on the link I posted in the chat. The last thing I'll leave you with is, for those that have interest in attending boot camp, I do have a couple seats left for our upcoming boot camp that's happening next week. So if you want to register, early bird pricing has been over for quite some time, but I'll still honor that if you want to leverage the discount code. Don't forget though, if you're on the elite level subscription, you do get to attend boot camp at no cost because it's included in your subscription. I will not be providing the code on today's call because there's lots of you that are not on the elite subscription, and I'm sorry, I love you, but you cannot use that code. So if you're, say, I don't know if I'm on elite, am I elite, reach out to the support team. We'll check your subscription access first. Once we've done that, then we will provide you with the code and you can register and attend. We will also have another boot camp happening in October. So if you can't make this one, there will be another one in October. You can come to both if you're on elite, if you want to. We can kind of go from there. Where I'd like to end today is, I'd just like to know what you thought of today's call. Was this training valuable? One of the only ways that I continue, I think, to make training better based on feedback of what I've received is just that. Based on the feedback I receive, I continue to try to develop content that is of most interest. So if you found today's training valuable, I'd love if you could just take 2 seconds and fill out a 2-question survey for me. Let me know what you thought. Other than that, that is all I have for us today. Sorry that we ran a couple minutes over. Thank you for your time. And if you need anything else, please feel free to stick around. I'll take a look at the questions and we'll get those answered. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. See you at the next one.